If you ask my father, he'd say he was a nobody, just a quiet guy. He was when he played football at high school, he hit you, you knew you got hit. He was a tough guy.
And I know many of my brother priests, when they got a phone call from John, or worse yet, if he showed up at the rectory door needing just 5 minutes of your time, you kind of cringed. It was just one more thing on a busy day. But when you realize that this man was sacrificing so much of his own time, so much of his own energy, so much of his own money, it was really hard to say no to him. And so he was a conscience for me, and I think many other priests.
He had always just done things that I always hoped that I would be able to do if I was ever, put to task. He wasn't afraid to ask people to do things, but he wasn't upset with you if you couldn't do them.
Oh, I was just always in awe of John. I used to call him Mr. Stanton all the time, Mr. Stanton. But then when I became a member of the board, I found myself calling him John, because I realized that I was an old lady myself. When I was in his presence, I felt that I was in the presence of a holy man.
My first board meeting was actually Mr. Stanton's last board meeting. In the middle of our first meeting, in the middle of all of the conversation around the table, the phone rang, and there was a woman who was in crisis and looking to talk to someone, and Mr. Stanton picked up the phone and in the middle of the board meeting carried on a conversation for about 25 minutes to 30 minutes, and I sat there thinking, wow, this guy really backs what he stands for.
I would not be an exaggeration to say that I think of him several times a week, if not every day. If I'm saying a prayer for the unborn, if I'm certainly anytime we work on any pro-life topics, the board might be emailing about. When I go home through Jenkintown every day, I think about John Stanton.
John Stanton was a loving and proud father, grandfather, great-grandfather, and husband to his beloved Harriet.
Pop was fun to be around. He had a great joy. But if he walked into your house, his smile lit the house up. He wanted to know about all the children.
It was hard not to like him. He was so kind. John loved people, and I think he wanted that to remain a key focus and a hallmark, a charism of our pro-life work.
He was born, raised, and lived his entire life in Jenkintown. He was a graduate of Northeast Catholic High School and LaSalle College, and he earned his master's degree from St. Charles Borromeo Seminary. He was the recipient of many honors, including the Pro-Life Union's John Paul II Award. John loved his faith and was proud of his Irish heritage.
When you were filling out the paperwork with the police, they ask you your race, and he would always put down I. And the police would, well, what are you talking about? He said, I'm part of the Irish race. I'm proud of it.
He strove always to serve a loving God and inspired all of us by living St. Patrick's Prayer, to be Christ in the heart of every man who sees him. Before Roe v. Wade, John and other pro-life pioneers mobilized against the state's liberalized abortion laws, pleading with elected officials to protect the sanctity of life.
Started in a little office in Glenside, not where it is now, and it was shared with the Christian Action Coalition, which Bill Devlin ran. The two of the Pop and Bill Devlin had a little tiny office on the second floor of an office building in Glenside.
Eventually, John became the first chairman of the Pro-Life Coalition, which is today the Pro-Life Union of Greater Philadelphia.
Back in 1973, when Roe v. Wade was made into law, I was a young mother living in St. William's Parish in Northeast Philadelphia, and I had just given birth to my fifth child, Bridget. It was incomprehensible to me as to how a mother could kill her own child. I realized that there were other women in the parish and elsewhere who were concerned about this new law that went into effect. One of the women, a nurse by profession, told us of a man who lived in Jenkintown who was taking matters into his own hands. And that man was John Stanton. From then on, I would call John Stanton on Friday evenings, and he would tell me where to go on Saturday mornings. We had no printed literature at that time, but gave from our hearts what we could to the girls, and sometimes they changed their minds.
Over the years, God has given us the ability to grow and adapt as we've faced new challenges, enabling us to better fulfill the mission and proclaim the fundamental belief in the sanctity of every human life. We are involved in every area of the pro-life movement, from outreach to education to public affairs and providing alternatives.
Well, in the very beginning, it was awareness, getting the word out of what's going on in our country, in our city, and in our towns, and in our hospital. The humanity of the child was always the focus in the beginning, trying to stress to people that this was a human being made in the image and likeness of God, and no human being deserves to be destroyed. So the activism was born of the witness of my father. Not that he asked me, I just saw him going all the time and decided to start going with him. Pop went at least 3 to 4 days a week in front of one of the abortion clinics.
John was a protector of the unborn and a voice for the weakest among us. He lived the pro-life message, seeing the image and likeness of God in everyone he encountered. Without exception, every pro-life organization turned to him for advice, knowledge, and leadership. He was the father of the pro-life movement here in Philadelphia, and the Pro-Life Union was honored to call him our founder and friend. John was our director for many years and continued to serve on our board until his final days. We had the privilege and joy of working with John to build a culture of life. His vision and leadership continued to guide us. 2 weeks before John passed away, he joined us at our board meeting, establishing our goals and priorities for the year, the most critical being reaching out to mothers at abortion facilities and addressing the needs of abortion-minded women.
One of the things that sets us aside is that we're looking at the whole picture. So the Pro-Life Union, on the one hand, is engaged in advocating for the proper legislation in Harrisburg as well as in Washington and within the local counties. We're also involved in education, certainly seeking to make sure that people understand these issues. Alternatives, making sure that women who make the choice for life and families who make the choice for life have the resources they need. And that's certainly an area that the Pro-Life Union is building as we work with lots of different organizations on housing, which remains a top priority. And then something else that we've been behind since the very beginning is the public witness, the vigils.
And we know that that constant prayer outside a clinic can change a heart. So there's no better thing for anybody to do than to pray in front of those clinics. And you get to plead with the mothers going in and at least witnessing that somebody cares for them and cares for their child. Most women walk by and still go in and have their abortions, but some women change their minds and have their babies. Many times, in fact, it just happened 2 weeks ago, a woman drove by and said, "I wish you were there the day I went in. Maybe I would have not had the abortion." So I think eventually these prayers are going to break through the wall and win the victory.
The other big thing that we're doing this year is we're trying to get our officials, our local, our state officials, to really enforce the laws that are already on the books. There's already laws in place about regulating clinics in the abortion industry, so we're really emphasizing that they would just take the laws that are on the books and enforce them.
I feel like we're in a grace-filled time right now. I think there is a great upside to everything we're doing. I think there's a great opportunity to invite people into the conversation. When you think of alternatives like housing, I think it's almost an opportunity for us to unify some of the Christian organizations within the Pro-Life Union. And I think it's an opportunity to bring people that are pro-choice into the discussion, because I think it's hard to deny that once a woman chooses to have a baby, that there aren't a lot of people well beyond the bounds of pro-life and pro-choice that wouldn't want to help to try to provide the right environment and to provide some of the things that a lot of people, many of us, have that we just take for granted.
I know we want to bring in more member organizations from existing pro-life organizations around the area, and so we can get everybody on the same page and really focus our efforts.
When I first joined the Pro-Life Union A number of years ago, I thought that the union really was a union, meaning that there were lots of organizations that had come together. And certainly that was part of our foundation. And over time, circumstances changed for lots and lots of different reasons, and that didn't happen anymore. In the past few years, as the Pro-Life Union developed a new set of bylaws, we've become very intentional again with that organizations that are working to build up the culture of life in lots of different ways will join with us, that they'll become member organizations. And so we'll make sure that we're always looking at the big picture and that all the pieces in the big picture are being satisfied. When we get to a point where we realize there's a new need, as the Pro-Life Union has done in the past with a variety of organizations, we'll seek to find the folks in the community who can found another organization to make sure that all the needs are being met.
Over the years, our members and supporters have joined us as we face the ongoing challenges with courage. And God has given us the grace to boldly proclaim the fundamental belief in the sanctity of every human life. We serve in a spirit of hope, and our work has made a difference. We believe that with each one of you at our side and involved in your own churches and communities, we will realize the vision for a culture of life that began with John and so many others. Thank you for being a part of this.
The Pro-Life Union is building the culture of life by offering alternatives to women who are thinking about abortion. Right from the beginning, we had 4 pillars to our mission, and of course the first one, prayer. But alternatives was always one of the 4 for obvious reasons, because we definitely wanted to reach the mothers who were thinking about abortion so that we could help them and take them to a better course and thereby save the life of their innocent baby. Well, because of the culture that we've had here these last probably 3 generations, we have many, many individuals who did not grow up in a family. They have never even seen a family. In some of our areas right here in Philadelphia, our dying city. So when they get into a difficult situation, after having sexual relations with a friend, they find themselves pregnant, and they may have other children. They don't have a father and a mother, so where are they going to live? Where are they going to get their rent? On and on and on. If they continue on with the pregnancy, they're going to have to stop working. So in desperation, they think about abortion, as violent as that is. And we have got to find those women one way or another so that we can redirect them and save them and save their baby. Certainly the major way that we can overcome this terrible crime is by building a culture of life, by providing alternatives to women who are so desperate that they would think about abortion.